Peak human.
Les humains à leur meilleur.
C'est tu apogeo.
Peak 人間
Peak human? O melhor, humano? Peak Carnivore.
Are you guys ready for this? This episode is 7 months in the making and has a ton of interesting takeaways. We have ex-679-pound Jeff, a fruitarian college wrestler, and a woman who, no joke, looks like a completely different person. First, I want to talk about how I make all this content possible. Support from people like you. I appreciate it so much, it's the only way I can do this. I'm living off my savings as I try to make the Food Lies film a reality. In the meantime, I'm putting out as much content as I can to get the information out there. I get messages daily from people whose lives are changing through this info, so that really keeps me going. You can also support me by going to patreon.com/peakhuman and contributing there. Members will get extended show notes and an invite to the private Slack group. You can also pre-order the film on Indiegogo through foodlies.org. It's still open and we still need your help. Lastly, you can check out nosetotale.org, where we have grass-finished, sustainably raised beef, buffalo, pork, lamb, and chicken for sale. We have all kinds of nose-to-tail products, including ground beef with organ meats mixed in, which is so easy and nutrient-dense, marrow bones, suet and coarse ground fat, all natural sausages, and all the normal cuts as well. It's shipped out each week to your door in a custom insulated box. Thanks so much for ordering. Now more about this episode. Laura has tried every diet out there and has never found something sustainable. She lost half her body weight and looks great. People think her before and after photos are fake. Her story is inspiring and resonating with people. She went from 100 followers on Instagram when we first talked to just about 10,000 as of today. We recorded the first call in January and the second call 6 months later in July. I'll post before and after pictures of each of these guests on social media and on the podcast episode page at peakhuman.com. Next up is Jeff, who lost 365 pounds by finally finding a carnivore diet. He also tried every diet under the sun and nothing ever lasted. We also had about 5 months in between calls. Last up is Mike, who is a Division I college wrestler in the middle of competing. He was convinced that a fruitarian diet was the way to go based on information he found online about our primate ancestors. Such a different story than I've ever heard told. Stick around for this one and hear how he changed his diet and changed his body composition and life. A quick announcement before we begin. I had some great talks with people at the meetup in San Diego, which was so much fun. It was packed, and we even had Dr. Gary Fettke and his lovely wife Belinda in from Australia show up. They're the ones that track down the history of Seventh-day Adventists and the anti-meat agenda. You can hear it on Peak Human episode 29. We also got some awesome interviews for the Food Lies film down there, including the aforementioned Dr. Gary and Belinda, Nina Teicholz, Dr. Brett Scher, and Dr. Hasina Kaji. We're finally done filming, people. The countdown has begun for wrapping this thing up. Anyway, I also had some great talks with some developers at the meetup about the great need for the Sapien technology we're developing. I realize we need some help. Building tech is slow going, and we'd love to build a team of like-minded individuals to speed up the process and expand on the platform. Email me at brian@sapien.org if you're interested in helping. So let's get to it. I hope people like this new type of episode to change things up. I thought it was really interesting to hear these people's stories, so hopefully you find value in them as well. Here's my first call with Laura Spath. All right, Laura, yeah, thanks for coming on. I saw a post of yours. I feel like I caught you right at the very beginning, right when you posted this. And then since then, Sean Baker reposted your thing and all these other people have reposted it. And you're all over the internet these days.
Yeah, it's been a little crazy. I think I had like 100 friends and family on my Instagram before a couple days ago. And now there's like 1,000. So
oh, wow.
I was not expecting that. It was more just my mom had been trying to get me to share the picture so she could show all her friends that I'd lost weight.
That's funny. Well, it was really compelling. I mean, I randomly searched the hashtag yes to meat, which I've never even done before. And yours was like the second one. So you must have just posted it. And I was like, whoa.
Used it before. I just started to because I had just watched Sean post something about it. And I was like, all right, well, here we go. And I've never even used that hashtag before. Yes, the other day.
Well, good thing you did. It's an amazing picture. So we're talking about the most amazing weight loss transformation that Laura's gone through. She looks so amazing now. And maybe you could just tell us how that went.
Yeah, I've gone up and down a lot over the years, but I kind of hit my highest weight ever last March of 2018. And I realized I was 263 pounds. I'm 5'8", so it's still pretty heavy, morbidly obese. And I weighed more than I did when I went into labor with my kids. And so I just realized I needed to do something and started with low carb and keto, and kind of the same results as I'd always had of I still was having cravings and I cheated and it wasn't going well. And my husband found Carnivore and I've been doing that now for almost a year. So I've lost 120 pounds so far.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
So a lot of people find success with low carb, but you just found it wasn't good enough. You still had those cravings.
Yeah, I think that was the main thing. Was I was using like low carb tortillas, or I was using sweeteners, or the, Quest bars, things that were approved. Everybody believes in them. But for me, it just, anytime I'd ever done that before, I would always go off of it, right? It was just a temporary diet. And I always gained back way more weight, or I still was having cravings or having cheats, or it really wasn't kind of fixing my mental state with food.
So yeah, how did you get to this place in the beginning? Do you feel like you have a food addiction or a snacking thing? Like, what do you think it is?
I've always just, a food addiction is hard. I think definitely it was how if you're bored, you eat. If you're hungry, you eat. If you're happy, you eat. I never had like a binge and purge or anything that extreme. I think it was just indulging in what feels good in the moment and realizing the next thing you know, you ate a whole pack of Oreos, or my husband and I would sit down at night to watch TV and grab a pint of ice cream each. And then the next thing you know, you've finished it, and then you do it again the next day. And it just turns into, that's how you go through your day, is to eat food. And I was eating breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, desserts, and didn't even realize how much you end up consuming over the course of a day, just because you just put everything in your mouth mindlessly. So I've never had, I definitely have issues with food, but it was more, I think, pretty basic standard. I never had like a binge and purge or any starving kind of situation. It was just, you eat when you're happy, and then you have a party and you eat again, and you're bored and sad and you eat, and you sit down with my husband at night to watch TV, and we would each grab a pint of ice cream, and the next thing you know, it's gone. And then you do it again the next day. And, I would snack during meetings and lunch and snacks. And it just, next thing you know, I just am constantly putting food in my mouth all day long without even realizing how much it adds up to.
It sounds like a lot of people in America do that.
Yeah.
So, and then what changed? So with Carnivore, do you think those restrictions really helped you? Or what do you think about Carnivore helped you so much? I
think it was just eliminating the guessing in a way. And we've always enjoyed eating steaks, but it was accompanied with steaks and bread and, baked potatoes and lots of other things. But I think that steak is so satisfying. It's so much different than eating like a grilled chicken salad where you just constantly are feeling hungry, or, beef is so satiating, and there's something so nice about chewing and feeling full and feeling satisfied. And I think over time, we kept telling ourselves like, hey, we're going to cheat on this day, or our anniversary is coming up. We'll go out to dinner and get chicken and waffles, or, we'll eat some ice cream. And then once that day came, we just didn't want to. I didn't want to feel bad, and I didn't want to eat those foods anymore. And we had planned on, all right, we'll make it to Thanksgiving and we'll have a big traditional Thanksgiving. And Thanksgiving came and we just said, who wants that anymore? And Christmas. And we just have found that that's not something that I'm craving anymore, or I'm interested in eating.
That's so amazing. People don't even think that's possible. If you thought about that a year ago, would you think that that was even possible?
Oh, no
for
way.
yourself?
Like Oreo just came out with a new carrot cake Oreo, and I'm not going to lie, I bought some and I smelled them and I gave them to my coworkers, right? Like I have this weird thing where I'm loving to like smell things that other people are eating. And then I just am like, wow, man, that smells really great. And then I just move on about my day. Like it's almost too like,
that's such an empowering
I don't
feeling.
even know. I've gained, or I've, lost 60 pounds before. And then over the next year, I gained back 60, 70 more. Right. And then I've lost 50 pounds and gained back 75. So it's definitely not like everybody knows how to lose weight. I've lost weight before. I've lost a lot of weight before. But the fact that I've been able to be this consistent and not have cheats or not think of it as needing a cheat is 1,000% different mindset than I've ever been in before.
Yeah, that's so true. Some people go on these crash diets and it doesn't make any sense to me because you're just going to go bounce back to what you're doing before. You have to do something that you actually enjoy and that you're going to stick with. As a way of
trying to diet, I think like 8 years ago, I went vegan for a year. And it was more just out of a diet principle and not so much a moral principle. But I was living on, quinoa, roasted vegetables, steel cut oatmeal and things like that. And spinach smoothies, sugar, right? Carbs, sugar. And yeah, and I still weighed more, being vegan. And again, it was a year, it was a weight loss goal. And I still weighed more than I do now, but I still looked a lot more frail. I was having acne issues. My hair was falling out. And now I'm much thinner than I was now, like 30 pounds less than I was then. And I'm much stronger. I was in at work.
Better body composition. You look great. Yeah. Like better.
Yeah, definitely. I think
tone, better everything.
I had a lot more issues with, skin back then. I hadn't had any, it was before I had children. So I had, my body has regained its shape a lot more this time. Somebody stopped me in the break room at work yesterday and just said, man, you look so good. You look so thin. I can't believe it. Most people who get this thin look sick. Or like, you look really healthy. It looks really good. And I think that's the biggest difference. I've always had issues with acne, and eating fatty meats makes my skin clear. I mean, it's really crazy.
Yeah. Well, this whole pizza face, like oil cause acne is so stupid. I mean, it's a combination of carbs and fat together that are cause all these problems, really. Any problem you can name, it's basically carbs and fat together.
Yeah, definitely.
That's awesome. So what other benefits are you seeing? I didn't even know you were vegan before. You were doing it well. You weren't eating vegan junk food, right?
No, it was really just, I was trying to lose weight and I was, really regimented. I was doing like hummus vegetables, oatmeal, spinach smoothies, roasted vegetables and quinoa. So not a lot of even tofu or seitan or any of that kind of stuff. But I just was I was eating 6 times a day because I was hungry all the time. And I'd also spent the last several years, I gained all that weight back again, plus more, had kids in there. After my daughter, I lost 70 pounds, got down to maybe 20 pounds heavier than I am now and thought I was doing amazing. And then I was like, okay, great. I'm here. I'm done now. And we went out for cheesesteaks and I had a pint of ice cream that night. And that was back on, the standard American diet again after that. It was the celebration with food. And then I, gained it all back again and went up 100 pounds. It's definitely been, up and down. And this is the first time I've ever been able to be consistent.
Yeah, that's the key. So it sounds like you can make this a lifestyle going forward. Do you see yourself adding in some amounts of plant foods or other things, or what is your goal?
I don't think so. I think I've had some digestive issues over the years. It's probably too much information, right? But I've dealt with hemorrhoids a lot in my life and constipation and things, but that's all completely healed. I've had no issues in the last 6 months with any kind of digestive. That's the part people can't wrap their heads around, is that you can have normal, healthy bowel movements without fiber, right?
Yeah. People don't understand that, but yeah, it's very, very true. There's tens of thousands of people now that are doing carnivore and proving this stuff.
Right. And that's been I've always added more vegetables, added more fiber, thinking that I was going to fix those issues, and it never worked. For January, I decided to do beef only, like beef salt water only. And that's been going really well. So I think at the end of January, I will add in some other carnivore things, a little cheese, bacon, eggs, and see how I feel. I'm very curious to see how I feel versus being on only beef. If I start adding in, chicken and pork and some other meats as well.
Yeah, if there's a difference. Yeah, that's an interesting experiment. Cool. Well, I love this story. I guess maybe we can check in with you maybe down the road, maybe next year. My husband's lost 110 pounds also. And, he's been able to reverse his diabetes and high blood pressure. Wow. So we both have kind of combined we've lost like 230 pounds. We're like a whole new, it's been a lot of fun. That's so cool. Yeah. Did your husband listen to this podcast? He did. Yeah, absolutely. That's where he started following Sean Baker and found you and a couple other people that has been the biggest place where he's done most of his research. Well, that's great. And then he's passed it along to me. He's a stay-at-home dad with our kids. And so he listens to the podcast during the day and passes along that information to me. Cool. He does all, it's nice. He's home all the time, does all the cooking of all of our meat every day. That's so great. Sounds like you guys have a good combo going. And I'm glad this information has got to you guys. Yeah, thank you. We're back with Laura. How's it going?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm so good. I'm glad we finally got to catch up. And we actually got to catch up in person when you came out to LA to film with us.
Yes, that was so great.
Yeah, you were such a great speaker. I had no idea. I thought, just Laura's going to come in and then she just like kills it on the big screen.
No, I was so nervous, but it was a really great setup. And the people that were there were super great. So I really enjoyed coming out there.
Cool. Well, I think your message and story is really important. So I'm glad it's going to be included in the film. And let's kind of update from where you were last time. We talked in January and you lost a ton of weight. You had all these different diet plans and none of them really worked. And then you finally found the one you could stick to. So where are you at now?
I think I'm actually the most excited to say that since we talked in January, I'm the same weight.
That's great.
Yeah, that may not sound like a good thing to a lot of people trying to lose weight, but for me to maintain my weight now for, it's June, for 6 months is probably the first time in my entire life that I've been a consistent weight for this long. I have always been in a state of gaining or losing. And so to be consistent is a huge win for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's easy to lose, not easy, but a lot of people can lose weight on any kind of diet.
Absolutely. I have always been somebody who could get determined and lose some weight, but then to continue that long term and to be able to maintain it has been amazing. And so on the scale, I weighed, I started, just as a reminder, I started at 263 pounds and then hit 140 pounds in January. And I still weigh 140 pounds, but I think since January, I've gotten a whole pant size smaller. I could definitely see toning, tightening up. I've lost body fat percentage since January, even though the scale has maintained the same weight. So there's been some, mental challenges with not seeing the scale move, but I've been trying to take a lot of pictures and notice my clothes fitting differently and how much better I feel, even though my scale weight has been the same.
Yeah, that's a good message that the scale weight is always not what matters. And
right.
So are you working out more? Could it be more muscle?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely could work out more than I do. I go to the gym like twice a week and lift weights, which is really, I tell myself that's all I have time for, whereas all the time that I'm willing to put into it, I guess, is the better way of putting it. But
well, that's fine. I mean, I just did a podcast with Keith Barr, who's, studies this and was a strength coach for Michigan football team. And that's all he does. He does twice a week for like 10 to 12 minutes.
Yeah.
So I love it. So what's going on like mentally and food cravings and all that kind of thing?
I kind of go off and on, and I'd love to just sit here and say, no cravings. It's been perfect. It's been amazing. But that wouldn't quite be, I have good days and bad days. I'm currently on vacation right now and they're baking cookies upstairs. I'm in the basement. They're baking cookies upstairs. And that's mentally hard. It's not physically hard to say no to them, I guess, anymore, but you're still around food. I live in life where people are eating food all around me. And I guess it hasn't been hard to say no, but it still is an everyday, many times a day decision to say that. It's almost been harder. Like I'm really good when I'm hitting results. And so when I was in active weight loss, it was, I was rock steady 100%. And it was super easy to say no to everything because I was addicted to the results. I think in maintenance mode, I still have been able to say no, but I definitely experience more mental stress, I guess. It's almost like the longer you do it, the easier it is. But in maintenance mode, I say, okay, now what? Like, what am I doing now? And if I'm not setting a lot of little short-term goals, then it's really easy for me to get sidetracked and to kind of fall off the wagon.
Well, that makes sense. You always have to have some kind of goal, I think. And It's hard when it's just the same. I mean, I struggle with this too, because I'm kind of at my goal weight. And so then I'm always like, I could do something. Yeah, I could do whatever I want.
Yeah.
And then on the weekends, I talk about it. Some people think that I have some perfect diet, just because I'm the one spreading this information. But no, I mean, I'm spreading the information, but I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm just saying, and on the weekends, I'm part of normal society and I can afford to do it now. But then I always have to bounce back. And then I do struggle with these same things because then on Monday, I'm like, oh man, I want something sweet or something because I screwed around on Saturday.
Yeah. And that's part of what I'm scared of. I'm scared to have something, an all out craze or like not even, I mean, I'm scared of not being able to moderate myself. And I think that's where the, life of being somebody who's obese comes into play is I'm scared of having a cheat meal and that turning into a week and a month and not being able to reel myself in again. And so for me, it's easier to stay strict than it is to try to tempt myself with moderation because I've never been able to do that before. So since January, I did have one day where I was like, you know what, we're going to have pizza and ice cream. And I did. And I, as expected, felt terrible. And I think that mentally, I kind of gave myself no option but to get back on track. And I, my husband and I both were talking about it and going to hold each other accountable. But it was really hard. I spent the next 2 weeks really dealing with a lot of cravings that I normally don't deal with. And was that one day worth the stress of the next several weeks of mental cravings? And at the end of the day, it just wasn't worth it. And so we're on vacation. So to me, I'm having cheese and sour cream, and that's I'm feeling wild.
Yeah.
Those are not things I have normally, but I'm on vacation. Hey, I want to live a little. So I'm going to have some cheese and sour cream rather than eating an entire tray of cookies, which I very easily could have done.
I think it's always going to be personalized to the person. And I try to always reel myself in when I make these recommendations, just because I can do it, just because I can bounce back quickly. And then I realize that not everyone can do this, or some people have even like autoimmune issues, so they can't cheat for even more reasons. So
And I notice a big difference if I have a handful of macadamia nuts, or I'm making my kids something and I have a couple spoonfuls of peanut butter. I notice a big difference in my digestive system. And 1 spoonful of peanut butter, next thing you know, I'm intentionally going to the pantry and getting 2 spoonfuls of peanut butter. And then the kids are in bed and nobody's around, and I grab another spoonful. Like, I see myself making these very quick bad behavior and bad choices with something as simple as a lick of a peanut butter tablespoon. And I just am so aware that I can't, that's my old habits coming back, and that to keep myself accountable, it's easier for me. It's so much easier to have nothing than to try to have something small. Like, this crazy amount of restriction gives me so much freedom from dealing with having to portion myself or ration myself, or, it's really weird.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I think that's just good advice for people who are kind of in the same situation.
I think the difference too with my body reacting is, my body is still that of a previous obese person. And you have, I know people talk about these adipose cells that I have more skin and fat cells than somebody who also weighs 140 pounds, who's never been obese. And that one day that I did eat carbs and sugar, my body swelled up, my excess skin, all those cells in your body. I think I gained 10, 12 pounds overnight. And that's not fat. That's just your body, the water filling up all those cells. But it took me a really long time 4 or 5 days before my body literally deflated. I mean, I looked like I was 6 months pregnant. I was swollen as I was from this one day of eating poorly. And I was uncomfortable, obviously, but more than anything, it mentally really was hard for me to feel like I undid all of that work and looked so puffy and so bloated and so pregnant just from one meal. And so that also was mentally hard, where I had to spend the next week or two really undoing all of that mental and physical damage from just one meal. It wasn't worth it.
Well, that's a good lesson. And thank you for checking back in. And I hope you continue on this path. And then one day, maybe it won't be such a harsh consequence.
Yeah, thanks. Hopefully check in with me in 6 months and I'll weigh the same, I promise.
Okay. I love it. Okay. Thanks, Laura.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. That was Laura Spath, and you can find her on Instagram at Laura E. Spath. Next up is Jeff, who went from 679 pounds to 343 pounds. Thanks for getting on the call with me. How'd you even find me, by the way? Were you listening to podcasts?
I haven't listened to the podcast, I'll be completely honest. I found you just through Twitter. Pay close attention to all the low carb, high fat, paleo, carnivore people, so to speak. So you were mentioned somewhere. That's how I found you.
Awesome. So right in your Twitter name, it says you're down from 679 pounds to 348. So that's so amazing. It's, half your body. That's awesome. Congratulations for one thing. And let's start from the beginning. Do you have any idea how you got to that size? I mean, did it just happen? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh, wow. It just happened over the course of, 29, 30 years, right? Bad eating habits, exercise, not up there where it should be, maybe depression at some point. There are so many factors. I mean, obviously there's the whole food component, period. Maybe a bit of insulin resistance. Too many factors to even mention to really know.
Yeah. So did you never really think about the quality of the food, or, just eating just for pleasure? Or did you ever try to eat a supposed healthy diet?
I did a lot of everything. I mean, I've done everything from Weight Watchers. I mean, I actually had gastric bypass in 2001 as well, which in the end failed. I gained back a lot of weight even after that. I mean, it is food quality. It's what I chose to eat. It's eating for pleasure. It's everything, right? I mean, the North American culture, the food culture is just, it's all bad food.
And what happened with the gastric bypass?
I did go from 679 to 412. As, the years progressed, I got to year 2, year 3, and then bang, the weight starts going back up again. The first time I could actually successfully weigh myself, I was like 230, between 550 and 535. And I had started trying to change my eating habits right before that. So I have no real idea where I finally hit the wall and then started reducing my body size with better food.
So do you recommend gastric bypass to other people? Because I've heard the same kind of story where it works for a little while and then it just always comes back on.
I absolutely unequivocally do not recommend gastric bypass for other people. I mean, obviously I'm no medical professional. There may be, extra circumstances you have to consider before that. But for myself, if you've got 100 pounds to lose, 150, whatever, don't do gastric bypass. Just eat right. Find something that works for you. Because gastric bypass, it's a great tool, but if your brain's not right and then your food afterwards not right, you're done.
It sounds like it's a very mental thing.
Yes, it's very mental. It wreaked a lot of havoc on my life, and I don't really want to get into that either, but we don't have enough time.
Can we talk about how to change that? Because a lot of these things are just changing the way you eat. It's about your mindset. It's about mental. I'm talking about in the positive sense, right? How did you change that mental mindset?
Oh, in the end, I don't know how I changed it, to be quite honest. I mean, I hit a wall, and then I just knew at that point a light switch was flipped and I had to do something different. I couldn't continue to live as a prisoner to my body. That's just how it happened. That's the only aha kind of thing. I can't live like this anymore.
Yeah. I just read your blog a little bit. Do you want to talk about some of those revelations and those little stories?
Yeah. So the first time I knew that I really needed some help. I mean, I knew that I needed help before that because everybody was telling me. But I was laying face down in the middle of the living room and I couldn't get up. I mean, I was kicking, screaming, crying. And this is when I was 679 pounds. That was just earth shattering. That's probably one of the biggest times that got me at least thinking about doing something in the positive. The second was in 2014, I was in Israel for a business trip, and I just couldn't participate in life with the people that I was there with. I just had a mental meltdown. And that's kind of when the light switch flipped. Was I just can't live trapped in this fat that I'm in. So I spent some time once I got back from Israel doing whatever, not necessarily eating bad things, but trying to get my mind prepared more for going into this. And then ever since we came back from a short vacation, I've been pushing to drop the weight. I've been going to the gym regularly. I started out with cardio, and then eventually I got into bodybuilding style workouts and powerlifting. And that's just been what it's been for the last 4 years. And you slowly augment changing the diet to where it actually helps, support the weight loss goals and ultimately just being overall more healthy.
Yeah. So we should talk about specifically what you've been eating. And first tell us what you've tried and what didn't work, and then how you found low carb, high fat, and what you started eating.
I've tried everything from parental enforced calorie reductions and eating restriction times to I've done Weight Watchers. That was moderately successful when we did it for a short time. I've done paleo, also moderately successful, which was done for a short time. I mean, that's obviously a very low carb way of eating as well. I've done shakes, the Slim Fast shakes. I just found for me that was not the key to my success, although it did work. I just felt like I needed a little bit something more, especially going to the gym after a while. Then I kind of spent a while in the wasteland, so to speak, where I was just eating or working out to eat, and I stagnated a bit. And then I started, this whole keto thing, it sounds pretty good. Very low carb. I can eat somewhat reasonable on it. So I did that for a little bit. And then I jumped kind of headlong into doing a carnivore style way of eating. So, I mean, it's more dirty carnivore, to be honest. I include eggs. I include cheeses. I do bacon, steak. Now I'm more leaning towards hyper carnivore, which also includes some vegetables. So I'm about 90%, I would say, carnivore. But I do have some veg just because it's just easier, even socially, to do that.
Yeah, definitely.
People don't look like you have two heads.
Yeah, that's great. So what do you think changed with this mostly animal-based way of eating? Well, why do you think that helps?
I was stuck for quite some time. And as I started getting lower and lower and lower carbs, I started seeing, the weight creeping off. And then when I was doing carnivore, it's like I dropped like 40 to 60 pounds in no time flat. Perfect. That stupid plateau is gone. Now, I hit 329 pounds a week or so ago.
Oh, wow.
And then because of the diet, kind of, and not really because of the carnivore diet specifically, but because of having had gastric bypass, past eating habits and everything, I developed gallstones. And the carnivore diet kind of triggered an episode with that. So I spent some time in the hospital recently to deal with that. But I can't blame that way of eating because my body was functioning as it should have. But previous eating habits and the rapid fat loss built up those deposits of gallstones.
You got to just monitor this stuff with your doctor.
Yeah, exactly. There are gotchas, they tell you, but when you're sitting at 17, 18 years post-op and you haven't had them, you kind of forget about them.
Mm-hmm. But what do you think specifically it was? Were you just finally full? Like, did you finally conquer some sugar cravings? Like, what do you think happened? I think that I found that I was eating less. That was simply it. I mean, I would eat, a pound of hamburger at night. And usually, unless I had during the day some eggs and bacon or whatever, that's all I would eat. So there was intermittent fasting involved in that as well, then obviously. Mm-hmm. That just forced my body to actually use the fat reserves for energy. Exactly.
Which is what you need to do anyway when you're morbidly obese. And most people that are morbidly obese have no clue how to get to that place.
Yeah. So it sounds like this is the only thing that's been sustainable for you. You've had success and with the short-term success with other diet plans, and a lot of people find short-term success. But what do you think about that other ways of eating and why, what goes on with people who are just constantly yo-yo dieting and it just always comes back? I
think a lot of it sometimes is mental, but the thing is people are not expanding on what they know. They see, this diet X, whatever, I lost this amount of weight. And then for whatever reason, they get derailed and it's like they feel like they've failed. And then they gain a bunch of weight and then they try that again. But the progress is slower because maybe they're older. They've become metabolically unhealthy. Somehow there's far too many things, I think, to consider in that. I guess most diets can be successful. It's how you make them successful when they start to slow down. Your progress starts to slow down. I mean, you can easily lose, 30 pounds of water weight on whatever diet you choose. But even before I did paleo, I had lost 100 pounds. I've been on this particular segment of this journey for the last 4 years. So weight maintenance has not been an issue for me, but I have had this up and down a little bit, like the same 10 pounds for, however many months type thing, but not like huge increases in body weight, unless I were to go off the rails and eat a bunch of carbs tomorrow. I mean, for the next week or whatever, sure, I'd gain 18 pounds. It's all going to be water weight.
So I saw on your site that you're not part of the body positive movement.
No.
Just talk about that for a second, because I feel like that's sending the wrong message. I would never fat shame anyone, and I hate that people do that. But I don't think we need to do the opposite, right? We don't need to do the opposite. That's sending the wrong message.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm misstating that when I say that. I believe you need to love yourself and whatever, but you also need to love yourself enough that if you can see that you have shortcomings with your health, that you try to overcome them somehow.
That's great.
Does that make sense? I mean, it's not that I hate fat people. I mean,
no one's, of course not.
Yeah, I know.
No, but it's just,
and I know you're not saying that. I think you have to love yourself enough to make the changes, not just say, well, I'm fat and that's how it is and you have to love me. I'm happy being fat. I mean, I don't think that anyone without some kind of psychological problem, maybe, I mean, I hate to say it that way, is truly happy being fat.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're a prisoner.
Mm-hmm.
That's my take on it based on my life experience.
Yeah. So it makes sense. So it sounds like you're saying love yourself, but strive for becoming healthier, and that we shouldn't just say that it's okay. It's such a fine line that you don't want to say that it's bad to be big, but we shouldn't say that it's perfectly healthy and fine. You should always be striving to make yourself better.
Right. I mean, there are ramifications to every choice that we make, whether it be to be extremely skinny, whether it be too extremely large. I mean, we have to consider that. And the overall issues probably for somebody that is morbidly obese far outweigh those that are, kind of on the anorexic side. I mean, they can both be equally as unhealthy metabolically.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, any final message?
Just do what works for you. If it means low carb, high fat, do it. If it means going vegetarian, do it. If you can be healthy on a vegan diet, by all means, do it. It's not for me, but hey, whatever anybody does, do that works for them. I'm happy to see you be successful. I'm not one of these, I hate vegans. I follow vegans on Twitter. We have meaningful exchanges that have absolutely zero to do with the hate meat versus hate veg people type thing. So do what works.
That's great. I love that message. And I like that people can get along despite their food views. And I'm having some vegans on this episode as well. So we'll hear from them soon.
All right. Sounds good, because everybody needs to get along. There's no reason for these wars that we're having. So little skirmishes all the time. Because we're all trying to be healthy. We're coming from a different angle, and then they're coming from an angle where they're also considering the welfare of the animals and all that. And it's a morality issue, so to speak, with them. But I just have never gone there and probably won't unless there's something extremely compelling. I like meat too much.
Yeah. Well, I just think it's based on your preference. You're saying do what works for you. Well, some people really like meat and enjoy it. And there's a way to be healthy eating a lot of meat. And some people, they really prefer vegetables and fruit. And there's a way to do that and be healthy. So choose that path. But you have to know, don't choose a diet plan that's completely opposite from your personal preferences. So.
Yeah, exactly. I follow this one person that eats 500 grams of carbs a day or more. And I'm like, man, if I did that, I would blow up like a Macy's Day balloon. Nah, no thanks.
Exactly. All right, Jeff, thank you so much. And I'm glad that you've found this health path and are continuing.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. I'll be looking forward to actually looking for this and hearing it.
All right, Jeff, welcome back. It's been over 4 months, actually.
Really? It's been that long? Seems longer, to be honest.
Well, I just looked it up. I had no idea, but it was February, and now it's June. So how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I had a mad sugar crash in February for my birthday because I just went off the rails and decided to have fun, as people do for my birthday. Ate too much sugar. Dumb me. An awesome experience, and all sarcasm intended. It was not good. I spent a week in a massive depression, lots of body aches and all that kind of good stuff. So I really don't want to do that kind of thing again.
Well, I guess you could think of it as a lesson then.
Yeah, definitely.
And so what's your weight at now?
My weight right now, I don't remember what I was at back then, but I'm at 314. 314.
314. That's great. Yeah, I think you were around 329 last time.
Yeah, it seems like it's not a whole lot of weight loss, but as people look at me, I see clients every other month or whatever, and they're like, "Man, you look smaller every time I see you." So the scale is not making dramatic jumps. Body composition is doing better, so that's good. I'm happy with
really
that.
good.
I can stay the same weight and be happy with this as long as my body keeps going the way it should go.
Well, absolutely. I was going to say that if you're not gaining weight, this is a good thing because most people lose this amount of weight and just put it back on. So it's a great feat to even just hold it on.
Yeah, exactly. I go up and down every once in a while. Usually when I travel, I might gain weight. The last time I traveled, I came back 6 pounds lighter. So, hey, I'm happy with that.
That's great. And so other than your little sugar binge, are you still sticking to carnivore?
Yeah, pretty much carnivore. I mean, I'll dip in or over to keto every once in a while. Yesterday, I had a burger with some avocado and stuff on it, but mostly carnivore. I prefer protein over vegetables for sure.
Yeah, well, who doesn't? So yeah, I guess it's good. I just wanted to check in again. I don't know if you had anything else. It's good to hear that you're still on track and haven't gone off the rails. Protein is keeping you full. Is that why you like it, or you like the taste, or both?
Both. I mean, the taste is awesome. I usually stay full. I spend a lot of time not eating, and that's pretty awesome because I don't feel the need a lot of times.
That's awesome. Well, that's the biggest part about losing weight, is not having the need to always be eating.
Yeah,
the desire.
Exactly. And the way of eating makes it a whole lot more easy. If I was eating carbs, I'd be, half an hour, 45 minutes or whatever, trying to get something else to eat. I mean, I do sometimes eat less at a meal. Say if I'm at my in-laws' house, I'll eat less of a meal, and they have usually lean roast beef or whatever, and it's just not enough fat. So I end up coming home and I eat, like 6 eggs to get some extra fat. Mm-hmm. And my wife's looking at me like I'm a alien with 6 heads, but I mean, I know why I need it. Mm-hmm. And maybe I should be full, but my body is telling me, no, you need something more. So
that's very natural. And I do help with people with losing weight. And a lot of times, even if they're kind of almost there, they're not eating enough fat. And so they don't realize why they're not full, and they'll be eating lean turkey breast. And they're like, I'm doing it right. I'm eating like lean meat. And I'm like, no, well, they're hungry a few hours later or half an hour later. And it's exactly that.
And the thing is, I don't have a normal size stomach still, but I can get full, but the fullness goes away. And then I don't feel satisfied.
I can see that. So I guess we'll just say one more thing before we get off is, what kind of advice do you have for other people?
Find something that works for you and stick to it. That's really the only thing I can say. If you want to go vegan, fine. Just make sure that your diet's complete. You're getting all the amino acids, proteins, everything that you need. You want to go carnivore? Great too. Whatever path for dietary success, just make sure you do it and be healthy.
Yeah, I guess so. Just whatever you can stick to. That's kind of what it comes down to. What are you going to stick to?
Yeah, exactly. Using these crash diets and whatever. If you can stick to something like a Weight Watchers even, or 2 shakes a day and a sensible meal diet with it Slim Fast, I just can't do that. If that works for you and you're happy and you feel satisfied for those 2 meals, all right, go ahead. Just whatever is successful.
I guess you could say, picture doing this for the rest of your life. And if it sounds good, then maybe it's good. And if it sounds like a nightmare, then you're probably on the wrong path. And so just the way I eat, I'm 100% in love with it and would do it for the rest of my life. And so that's how I know I'm on the right path.
Yeah, I would say that's the same for me. I mean, sure, you have slip-offs or whatever, but I would not go back to eating the way I was previously, like full-time. Mm-hmm. Again, I couldn't do it. My body wouldn't allow me to.
It's great that you've come this far. Thanks for catching up again. Maybe we'll catch up again in the future.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe it'll be after I do the skin reduction surgery.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
that's great. If you've gotten to that point.
Yeah, I'm nearly there. The doctor wants me to lose a little bit more weight, And I'm thinking no, but I guess I'll get down to maybe 300 pounds and see what he says. He said we'll revisit at that point. He's not the only game in town. He's really knowledgeable, but I need to decide where I'm happy at and then find a surgeon that's willing to go from there.
Awesome. Well, yeah, let's stay in touch.
All right. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you.
Take care.
That was Jeff, who can be found on Twitter at FatBoyBeastMode. Next up is Mike, who can be found on Instagram at Mike_Vanbrill, VANBRILL.
All right, Mike, you found me on Instagram and asked me a question how I was feeling on my diet, which is kind of funny, and it opened up us talking a little bit. So what's your story? You're a D1 wrestler in New Jersey. That's all I know about you.
Yeah, so I'm a D1 wrestler. I'm in my junior year. I wrestle at Rutgers University. I've been kind of wrestling my whole life. And I've always kind of had to play around with diets because I don't know, I've always ended up on the spectrum of cutting a lot of weight. I've never was able to just wrestle and not cut weight. So I got real interested with diet, kind of even in high school was playing around with it. You know, what's the best way to, lose weight, health, and feel good? That was kind of how I started my research. And, coming to college, I just wanted to find a diet that was going to make me feel the best that I could be. And it started with, cutting a lot of weight. I'm 141 pounds. I wrestle at 141 pounds, but in the off season, I could weigh up to 165. And my whole journey started when I got really big into food. I started my vegan journey actually around, I'd say probably around April to May. Because I wrestled in the Big Ten tournament in March. Yeah, 2018 of last year.
What led you to that?
And I actually was wrestling in the Big Ten tournament, and I didn't do as well as I wanted to. I beat, the defending Big Ten champ. I did pretty well. I was a redshirt freshman, and so I'm actually a redshirt sophomore now. Redshirting just gives you an extra year. I'm technically a junior education-wise, but when I wrestled in the Big Ten tournament, I had to cut tons of weight from 165 to 141 all year. It was just, it was a lot. And in that time, I was eating, actually Eat Clean Bro, a lot of Eat Clean Bro meals. It's like this kind of people that, deliver these meal packages, and there's like steak and chicken, and there's usually a carb and some vegetables. I did pretty well there. But, I was just cutting a lot of weight, and I just went on a binge after the season. I ate everything you could imagine, from milkshakes to like the breads, the carbs, the whatever. And I got really big, and I hit like 175 pounds, and I developed, some high blood pressure, some skin problems, and just was overall just feeling like shit. So I started my vegan journey in April, and it took me all the way until about August or closer to September to start, a high fruit diet. So that high fruit diet has taken me from about September to October, and around November is when I was questioning it. I wasn't wrestling as well, and, I was out for a concussion in the beginning of the year, and I've never gotten a concussion in my life. And I just had a couple aches and pains, but I never really thought it was from the diet. I maybe just kind of was pushing it off. So yeah, I'm actually now messing around with, some clean, eggs and, always, grass-fed beef. I'm playing around with, after, for dinner with some, avocados and things like that. But yeah, so that's kind of where.
So yeah, so you weren't feeling as good on this almost fruitarian diet. And then now you're going the opposite way and doing mostly animal foods, but some avocado as well. Or what else are you eating?
Yeah, like for dinner tonight, I actually added some sweet potatoes, like some low glycemic carbs. I'm not gonna like totally go crazy off of the carbs, but one thing that interested me with the fruitarian diet was that we were frugivores and things like that. Dr. Morse claims. So that really stuck with me, and that's why I went fruitarian, is because I really believe that. But I also, there's so many convincing arguments that we, adapted to eat meat. So I feel that my diet right now is going to be including some fruits, into it, but also, kind of, after my hard workouts and things, like incorporating building foods, like steak and stuff. Cause I did lose a lot. I'm going to say that I did lose some muscle. No doubt about it. I was eating lots of fruits, and I was eating, the nuts and the seeds and the tahini dressings on my salads at night, lots of salad, at night, cause they say, if you're doing lots of workouts and things like that, to put in building foods. So I was doing that, but no doubt in my mind, I lost, muscle tone and things like that. And I thrived off of being strong with wrestling. And it wasn't really, it wasn't.
Well, so for one thing, I mean, maybe 8 million years ago, we were frugivores, but things definitely changed. Yeah. I don't really like these people trying to make these claims. It's very confusing to people when, you're using these evolutionary arguments, and not everyone studies all this stuff and knows what's fake and what's not. And been so many changes since then, and we've come to rely on animal protein as a bioavailable source of protein that's way more available to us than the fruit. And, we just don't have the same digestive system that can turn these plant foods into quality proteins like a cow would or an ape would. So there's definitely a lot of sort of misinformation out there when you just go on the YouTube train. But yeah, I guess.
Sure. That's what led me to, I started my journey of researching on YouTube and all those things, and it was great, and it's a start. But now, I'm digging on the opposite end because I want to get every piece to diet. I'm starting to research autogenous wonder planets. I'm starting to watch other people like Sean Baker and all these other guys that are, thriving on meat diets. And I want to see for myself how these diets make me feel. And there's no doubt when I transferred to a high fruit diet, there was benefits. I felt that off the start. I did have some energy and some changes in my mood. And
what were you eating before that though? So a lot of times any kind of diet where you're basically eating all fruit diet is almost like a reduced calorie diet. You're not getting enough calories even. It's hard for humans to even digest that. It's not so that, yes, any diet that makes you reduce calories is going to have tons of benefits initially, but it's more about long-term, like you said, as you start lost muscle.
For sure. And I think it was me cutting out, grains and unprocessed and processed foods in that aspect. I think that's where a lot of my benefits came from,
I think you told me you started gaining some muscle already back.
Yeah. I mean, I've been about almost even 2 weeks just adding some eggs and some grass-fed beef, and my muscle tone's already coming back. And it's not like I'm eating a lot. I noticed that I had to eat so much foods, like vegan foods, and, gas was a problem. I had lots of bloating on, and snacking, always throughout the day, and constantly, I felt that I was constantly waiting for my next meal. I thought,
So it sounds like you're just looking for information. I was trying to just be really unbiased with you and not try to, I don't really push a certain diet except for just nutrient density, right? Yeah. So yeah, has that been helpful at all, or have you learned anything?
Nutrient density. I think that once I started incorporating meats into my diet, I do feel stronger. That's one of the benefits. And I also don't feel my digestion has definitely helped because I felt that when I was eating so much plant foods, after I ate a big salad, like a 2-3 pound salad with, the nuts, the seeds, the tomatoes, whatever you wanted, I felt so bloated that I couldn't really move after it. I eat a steak. It's like I'm satiated. I wanted to put this in my first time, it was almost 8 to 9 months of being vegan. I don't even know. I think almost around there. Last week was my first time eating eggs. I had 3 over easy eggs, and what happened was I ate them. I felt like this, really, not like a high feeling, but very satiated. And I was so calm after I ate them. I fell asleep for 3 hours straight, and then woke up, and I had practice after that, and it was a very good practice. One of the best I've had all year. So it was kind of weird that that happened.
Well, that's cool. I've heard a lot of people talk about that when they come off vegan diets and they eat butter or cream cheese or eggs, and it's what's their body's been looking for so long, and they feel so great.
I definitely felt very satiated when I ate those eggs.
That's cool. Well, now are you looking into more of this side of nutrition and realizing all the available nutrients in these animal foods and why it makes you feel so good? Because you need these fats, you need saturated fat for your brain. Yeah, maybe that's why you got a concussion. You didn't have enough saturated fat or cholesterol in your diet and your brain was lacking.
I was, after I researched that was definitely a question that I was thinking, an answer that I was thinking, the omega-3, all those protection for your brain. So yeah, it's definitely a big part that I think helped.
Cool. Well, let's check in later down the road and keep on your journey, and let's stay in touch.
For sure. Thank you for having me here.
All right, man. You're back. It's been a few months. How's it been going?
So it's been going pretty good. I've been about since January, I've been back on a kind of like a high meat diet with a little bit of fruits and kind of low on the vegetables, but mostly been just with red meat, eggs, and some bacon and stuff. Definitely high on the meat.
Wow. I remember, I didn't know it was January, but you were just transitioning and you were just talking about how you ate eggs for the first time recently when we first talked.
Yeah, I was on like that raw vegan fruitarian diet and everything kind of went downhill, but now I was about 4 or 5 months into, kind of a high meat diet, and I competed at a tournament recently, 2 weeks ago, and a pretty high level national tournament, and I placed top 12 out of 140 kids. I wrestle really well. Wow. I feel really strong. It's a total body change composition, when you're eating meat, definitely.
That's awesome. Yeah. And you sent me a picture on Instagram. You could totally tell.
Oh yeah. I'm not even really lifting much, but like I went back into the weight room with my coaches and I lifted and I deadlifted, I think it was like 417 or 420 or something like that with a body weight of like 165. So, wow. My whole body composition has changed.
What about
another thing? Yeah. Squatting, I'm close to around, usually like I'm comfortable around like 340.
That's great.
Yeah, no, my squats are pretty good. But and also another thing that I kind of noticed was without really, I kind of like gave myself a leeway with like cheating and stuff, but most of the time it's just like meat, fruit, and then sometimes rice here and there. But when I do cheat, I used to always, when I was on the raw vegan diet, I would always notice that my like eczema kind of spot, like dry skin, like on my leg, it would kind of flare up. But like ever since I've been eating a lot of meat, I noticed that like it's almost looking like new skin's like coming over. It's kind of weird. It looks really nice, and I don't really got to worry about it.
That's awesome. Yeah, a lot of people have eczema and skin problems clear up. A lot of that I think is from the vegetable matter. It's kind of irritating to sort of an autoimmune type conditions that some of these are.
Yeah, no, I'm sure, because when I was on the raw vegan diet, I was doing big salads, and I noticed that I would have huge like gut problems. Like I would just like, oh my God, I'd be so bloated for like 2 hours straight when I ate like a huge salad.
Yeah. And
man, so like when I changed, from, that fruitarian diet to kind of like a carnivore-ish type diet, one thing that I noticed was libido. It's a total 180. It's like you could just totally feel and notice the difference. And I remember Sean Baker was talking kind of about how he wakes up every morning with it, whatever, but like
ready to go. Yeah.
Yeah. It is literally the truth, man. You just totally, your mind and everything, you're so interested, and it's just really cool to, have that back. Cause when you lose it, you don't take it for granted until you lose it. And having that back and strong is really cool.
Well, yeah, that's like part of life. That's human nature. It's crazy to think of a diet that would put you in that situation. And you know what? I talked to Elise, the raw alignment. She said her libido was gone. She had no sex drive, and it immediately came back online. So have you've heard of her, or like about it?
Yeah, I used to, I follow kind of all the whole raw vegan community and also the carnivore community, and I noticed some of those things, similar things kept on coming up in the raw vegan community where the libido just, goes down. And it's not even in just like physically, it's mentally, you just don't even get interested anymore. Your sex drive is just totally down. I thought it was kind of just like I'm like ascending type thing. Like it's like, I'm like growing spiritually, and I'm not interested in that anymore. Like literally that's what you get taught when it's like Dr. Morse and all those people. But when you start eating meat again, it is boom, it's back online. It's like you feel like a man again.
That's awesome. Yeah, man, you're in your college prime. You can't be messing around with that. So, well, it's crazy. Yeah, vegans, they have all these weird, like they try to convince women that it's okay to lose their period. They're like, oh yeah,
I know.
Is like, it's insane.
I bought into it too, though. I was like, wow, that makes sense. And then you experience it, and then you're like, oh my God, that is not the way. So
good to know. Good to know you're back.
Yep.
You also messaged me on Instagram about these skin issues being a lot better too.
Yeah, no, for sure. Everything seems to be, getting a lot better. My acne on my face doesn't really flare up like it used to, and I'm feeling overall like a lot more energy. I don't have to, constantly eat throughout the day. I kind of just, if I have a piece of meat, I'm kind of satisfied for, 2-3 hours.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I got to include this picture you sent. You can tell like this muscle's coming in.
Yeah, maybe I can even show you like another picture of me now, because I went from 141 pounds, which I was cutting weight to make, from around 155 when I was like fruitarian. Now I'm like 175, kind of like thick and,
Whoa.
you know, muscular. Yeah.
That's a big, okay. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess it might be obvious to some people listening that a fruitarian diet isn't great, especially if you're an athlete. But yeah, do you have any other kind of like words of wisdom or kind of anything else going on?
Yeah, I would, you know, I follow both communities, kind of, you know, the carnivore community and the raw vegan community. And I would just kind of say I love to, you know, to hear both sides of things. And, you know, I went through the raw vegan side of the community, and I do not think that some of the things they say is correct. You know, just like how like fruit is like the only thing we need to eat. If you look at like people who only eat fruit, they are like really, really skinny. And if we were in the wild and, you know, you saw someone trying to tell you to take health advice, and you saw like a carnivore person who's muscular as shit and ripped for like a Paul Saladino versus a guy who's just like eating all fruit and skinny as anything, who would you listen to?
Yeah, it's pretty obvious. I always think about that too for just running. You can look at a sprinter and they're all jacked, and then you look at these marathon runners and they're all emaciated.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's like, I mean, I always say like just sprint, you know, you don't have to sprint, you know, not everyone can sprint, but just do really short, high intensity stuff, lift weights. Don't sit there on the treadmill for an hour.
Yeah, because if you're doing that, you're definitely going to wreck your thyroid by doing those prolonged workouts, because your body kind of likes those spurted workouts. And, you know, if you're lifting short spurts and things like that, I think it's better for your overall health and longevity.
Yeah. And body composition. All right, man. Well, I'm glad you made that switch. It sounds like you kind of just randomly found me in the beginning, and or some other people too. I'm glad you found Saladino. He's a good friend of mine, and he's got some good information. So keep on it.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, hopefully we can do another follow-up or whatever. But everything seems to be going good. And, you know, thanks for having me.
All right, cool, man. I'll see you.
All right, see you later.
And that's a wrap for my 7-month in the making podcast episode. I'm glad I did it. Keep reaching out to me with your transformational stories, or if you need some help on your journey. Please check out the awesome grass-finished meat we're selling on nosetotail.org. Have you rated or reviewed this podcast on iTunes or your podcast app yet? If not, it's the freest and easiest way to support me. You can still get a copy of the Food Lies film on Indiegogo. Support me on Patreon if you can. And you can still follow Food Lies on social media, where a lot is going on daily. We're also putting more content out on YouTube, and look for The Sapien Show coming soon. Until next time, eat densely and move intensely, my friend.